Alright everyone, link in the description, archived of course, actually a good article. I just am in the habit of archiving everything. It makes the pitch that Joe Biden is indeed going to be replaced. But he's not going to be replaced by another Democrat. Not within the primaries, of course. He's going to be replaced by Donald Trump. And really, I do see the writing on the wall. I've been analyzing the polls now for months. I've been strenuously attempting to match them up to the polling in 2016 and 2020. Let me run over it briefly for anyone who hasn't seen me analyze this before. In 2016, Donald Trump was only rarely ahead in aggregate polling. It was a blip on the radar, basically. Mostly Hillary Clinton remained ahead by a fairly comfortable margin. On election day, it was 4.5%. In the end, he came in a couple points ahead of that, but he was behind, including in all of the swing state polling for the most part. I think Pennsylvania and Georgia were the only ones where he ever led for a significant length of time. Of course, he ran away with it in Georgia, and right now he's something like 6 or 7 points ahead, so it's a different margin. But he wins in 2016. In 2020, there was never any period of time in which Donald Trump led either in competitive state polling or in general polling. Not a single instance. It never happened anywhere. He was behind in some of the states he ended up winning. Hong Kong, of course, in the end. And he was ahead, I think, in 2 or 3 polls, individual polls, not aggregated, of course, on RCP during the entirety of the 2020 election for general polling. He managed to almost win. He came in a couple 100,000 votes behind in 6 different states that had interesting ballot printing issues and a lot of mail-in votes. That won't be as much of an issue, by the way, in this election. Right now, he's running ahead in general polling, and he's well ahead, more than 2 points. That's a big swing. That's a 6-point difference from 2016 when he won. And it's about a 12-point difference from 2020 in which he supposedly narrowly lost. He's currently ahead in all of the swing states. I think it's about 50-50 in Pennsylvania. Everywhere else he's running hot. He's about 4.5 points ahead in Michigan right now. And 13% of the Democrats there voted uncommitted. So I'm calling the Michigan race tentatively for Donald Trump already. And I think Georgia and North Carolina are pretty much off the table. That pretty much gets you to 270. You literally need to pick up 1 additional state, and he happens to be ahead in 4 of them, so I don't think that that'll be too difficult. I agree with the sum and substance of the article. When I first saw the listing on RCP, I'm like, oh, another article about how Joe Biden's going to be magically replaced at the convention by Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Kathy Hochul, so one of these morons. But actually it was a good article. It's about how he will be replaced, but it's going to be by Donald Trump in a second non-consecutive term. I believe that to be likely at this point. We're getting closer to the general. Today's Super Tuesday. Half the states have already spoken by then. We're going to look at that polling differential, of course, differential turnout, the gap between Trump and Biden and their various competitors. We'll be analyzing that, of course. That'll be important data that we need to take into consideration. All signs so far, though, show that Donald Trump is running well ahead of where he was in either of the other elections in which he's participated, with enthusiasm and turnout levels considerably higher than that of his opponent. The problem with cycling out Biden and getting somebody else in is that Biden doesn't want to do that. He does want a second term, of course. He doesn't want to be a single-term president. His age, his cognitive decline, the various mistakes that he's made, and I would argue the optics of his administration, the branding, the messaging, are all huge impediments to him being reelected. But cycling him out might be somehow worse. Imagine, the Democratic Party loyals have voted in the primaries, and 95% of them have voted for Joe Biden, generally across the board. And then he's not the candidate. Well, that's talk about an attack on democracy. The voters have spoken, and then Joe Biden will be trying to mint somebody as his replacement. And enthusiastically, it probably would not be his current VP. It probably would not be Kamala Harris. If it is, they'd be even more crazy somehow. Well, how are you going to pitch that to the voters? See, the problem is you're basically stuck with Joe Biden. I do believe that he will be the Dem nominee. I'd be very surprised if he stood down at the convention. If that does happen, it's going to be a real big fucking problem, by the way. Donald Trump will be the nominee. Doesn't matter if he's found guilty of a felony. I mean, he already had his civil judgment with the Letitia James kangaroo court there with Engeron, and that didn't appear to harm him any, despite the fact that supposedly he's bankrupt Trump now, bankrupt Don. I don't know how they're going to stop him, actually. I think that Biden will be replaced by Donald Trump, and that's desperately what I'm hoping for. The Trump years were simply materially better than what we've been suffering with for the last few years. They were better. Even a lot of liberals understand this. Supposedly, there's a large segment of the population, a sizable minority, that actually approves of the current economic conditions. And I can only imagine those are people that were either so poor to begin with, and they tend to lean left, that they don't notice the difference because they're like, well, I was poor, now I'm poor. Nothing has changed. Well, then I probably approve of it tacitly. Or there are people at the top who are sheltered from Bidenflation and all of the other problems in society. They're not the ones taking out credit card debt to buy groceries. I'm trying to figure, because it's literally my job as a political analyst. This is sort of what I do. This is my forte. I try to think about scenarios in which Biden could win. And really the only one I can think of is that ballot printers go burr. But the problem is that Trump is running so far ahead of where he was in 2020. You'd need like 10 times as many ballot printers to go burr. I think that would be a little bit transparent. I think people would actually take notice this time around. Because it wouldn't just be, hey, in Maricopa County, a bunch of printers stopped working or people were shuffled from one area to the other. It'll be more like it would have to be systemic. Have you seen the polling out of Arizona lately? Donald Trump is absolutely creaming the competition there. I don't see any way in which Joe Biden can plausibly win the election. Also, there's always the possibility of some sort of October surprise where one or both candidates fucking croaks because they're both old. So, we do have to take that into consideration even with Trump. He may be healthy for his age, and he is, and relatively active. He's high energy. That's perfectly fine, but he is in his mid-70s. Joe Biden is in his 80s now. He's not healthy. Cognitively, he's not even goddamn all there. Not that his much younger VP is all there on a regular basis either, so we've got to look out for that too. Kamala could pop an aneurysm at any time. Something's mentally wrong with her. Biden will be replaced. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he'll get a second term. I don't think he'll be reelected. If he steps down, then he can't be reelected, and if he steps up, then Trump probably destroys him. It could be a clean sweep, by the way. Trump could end up expanding the 2016 map. Based on the polling right now, I would favor him to win Maine as well, and possibly Virginia, and he'd be competitive in New Hampshire. Well, that's a lot of potential pickups over the 2016 map, and if he doesn't lose in any of those states, he's already got the election anyway. He can lose 2 of those states randomly chosen. He can get 4 out of 6, and he can still be reelected anyway. It'd be more narrow, but he'd be reelected. So, yeah, I do agree with the article. I think that Joe Biden's political days are numbered. I have a feeling that Big Don is going to cream him in the 2024 election. We'll wait for more polling. We have to wait until the weeks before the election to give our final prediction. But if nothing else changes, if the economy does not markedly improve, if the border crisis is not tackled, if none of these wars we're involved in, proxy wars, is scaled down or ended to some considerable measure, I would say that Donald Trump would have about a 90% chance today, if the election were held, of being reelected for a second term. That's about all. Peace out. Oh, well. Sometimes my mouse decides to stop working. Sorry about that.